defending his military record.
I will not allow anyone to take a few misplaced words and impugn my record of service to our country.
Democratic Senate candidate Richard Blumenthal talks about a recent report about his military service.
On a few occasions, I have misspoken about my service, and I regret that, and I take full responsibility. I served in the United States Marine Corps Reserve, and I am proud of it.
U.S. Senate candidate Richard Blumenthal said today his misplaced words were unintentional. He says he meant to say he served during Vietnam instead of in Vietnam.
News 8's Ted Coppy has been on this all day. He joins us live now from the VFW post in West Hartford, where Blumenthal spoke earlier today. Ted?
Darren and Sonia, this is the backdrop that Richard Blumenthal chose to answer some very big questions. One of the biggest, of course, is how does a man who chooses his words so carefully in a successful career as an attorney make such a big mistake when talking about his own personal military service? Well, today he stood on the stage behind me and tried to answer that question. It's not the kind of small, predictable news conference Dick Blumenthal's used to holding as state attorney general, but it could turn out to be one of, if not the most important news conference of his political career.
Now, on a few occasions, I have misspoken about my service, and I regret that, and I take full responsibility. But I will not allow anyone to take a few misplaced words and impugn my record of service.
Flanked by retired Marines at the Veterans of Foreign War in West Hartford, Blumenthal was defiant about his service in the Marine Corps Reserves and his dedication to military and veterans issues. His references to having served in Vietnam over the past few years, he says, were unintentional, inadvertently using the word in instead of during. Despite the front page article in the New York Times and the flurry of questions since it broke, Blumenthal says he's not lost credibility with Connecticut voters. But his opponent, Merrick Alpert, who's a veteran himself, says Blumenthal is not sorry he misspoke. He's sorry he got caught.
I don't think he's electable, and that's clearly not my opinion. If you look out there from left to right to center in the political spectrum, you recognize that people consider this a fatal action on his part, and I think it's a true statement. Richard Blumenthal is not electable. It's only a matter of time before he recognizes that.
Alpert calling it today a political apology. Now, there are questions in the last 24 hours as to where this story originated. Some ideas floating around that perhaps Linda McMahon's campaign, the Republican for that Senate seat, fed this story to the New York Times. About 20 minutes ago, I got off the phone with a campaign spokesperson, and I'm going to read their statement to you. She said the New York Times is responsible for researching, writing, and breaking this story. For some time, we've taken a very close look at Mr. Blumenthal's public statements on the issue, and we've compared those with the facts. It's very clear to us that there is a huge disconnect. Now, coming up on News 8 at 6, you're going to hear from veterans themselves and a political analyst on how this is all going to shake out. Reporting live in West Hartford, Ted Coppy, News 8.
All right, Ted, thanks. Everybody is buzzing about this today, and tonight we're hearing reaction from people on Blumenthal's explanation.
News 8's Tina Detel on the scene in Groton with what folks had to say.
With the naval subbase right here in Groton, the military is a huge part of this community. So we thought we'd check out this lunch spot to find out how folks in here felt about Richard Blumenthal's military service. Chester's Barbecue, a popular spot with Navy guys and gals who make up a good chunk of the lunchtime crowd.
Some of the military guys were discussing it, but I'm kind of busy, so I didn't really get into the details with them. But he served, and that's what matters.
Attorney General Richard Blumenthal, a Democratic Senate hopeful, did serve in the Marine Reserves, but when he said he served in Vietnam, he says he misspoke, meant to say during Vietnam.
Well, I think he lost a lot of credibility because he was a very well-respected man, and now a lie is a lie.
Still, Abby Parkinson is willing to hear him out.
I'm forming my opinion first, but I'm willing to listen to what he has to say later on. So.
I think I want to wait till he explains himself. But I saw the clip where he said where he talked about his service in Vietnam, and then to find out that he didn't serve in Vietnam, it's just I don't know how you can make that mistake.
A difference which does make a difference to this recently retired Navy man.
and now we're finding out that he didn't serve in Vietnam. So that does question his credibility.
But not to the owner of this restaurant.
Probably he just misspoke. He was enlisted at the time. So.
Chet Dugas was a Marine during peacetime and is just as proud of his service as Blumenthal is.
He's doing a good job. It doesn't really matter. No, I don't think it's that relevant.
Now, the folks who are active military like these guys, though, told us they are not able to speak to us on this issue. On the scene in Groton, Tina Detel, News 8.
Well, the top Republican in the Senate race, Linda McMahon, has had nothing to say publicly so far today. You heard Ted mention that we asked her to talk. So far, she has not. The other main Republican in this race, Rob Simmons, is a Vietnam vet. Simmons says Blumenthal owes an apology to Vietnam veterans.
But don't come back 30 years later and tell people that you served in Vietnam when in fact you requested deferments from that service.
Simmons has not called for Blumenthal to get out of the race.
Well, in our poll question today, we want to know, will questions about Richard Blumenthal's military service hurt his campaign? Come to our website and let us know what you think. WTNH.com. And be sure to stay with News 8 and WTNH.com for continuing coverage on Richard Blumenthal's service questions.